Merhaba değerli arkadaşlar. Bugünkü seminerimize hoş geldiniz. Bugünkü seminerimizi bize Amerika'dan katılan Can Bey yapacak, Can Gülen Bey. Sağ olsun son zamanlarda seminerleriyle bize büyük katkı sunuyor. Bu sene yine çok önemli bir konuda bize seminerini sunacak. Pressure Gain Combustion konusunda. Yani çok gündemde olan, yıllardır gündemde olan, oldukça yüksek teknoloji altyapısı gerektiren bir konuda büyük kazanımlar sağlayacağız. Ben biraz Can Bey'in özgeçmişinden sizlere bahsetmek istiyorum. İngilizce olduğu için izninizle İngilizce ben CV'yi okuyacağım. Can Gülen, Bechtel Fellow, is a Senior Power Plant Systems Analyst in Bechtel Infrastructure and Power, located in Reston, VA. In this role, Dr. Gülen is responsible for new technology assessment, steam and gas turbine performance, operability and risk analysis, turbo machinery, system design, analysis and optimization. In his early career, Dr. Gülen worked in ESPC in New Jersey, focusing on the transient modeling of the novel cascaded humidified advanced turbine cycle and the data analysis of the compressed air energy storage plant in Makina. Between 1996 and 2000, Dr. Gülen worked in a thermoflow, including in MA, on the development of industry-leading heat and mass balance simulation, plant cost estimation, and performance of monitoring software such as GT, PRO, Thermoflex, and PEACE. Upon joining GE in 2000, Dr. Gülen worked in a variety of roles with increasing responsibilities in various GE energy organization. He made significant contributions to new production initiation, Tollgates 1 to 3 of 109 FPSS combined cycle, plant with A15 heat steam turbine, Baglan Bay 109 HSS steam-cooled gas turbine, hot gas pad, CC power plant, characterization test in 2003, IGCC 207 FP and PI TGI-3 system, design and performance modeling. Dr. Gülen's work in GE, among others, led to several in-house software tools and advanced technology operations organizations CC performance fundamentals course. Dr. Gülen graduated from Boğaziçi University in Istanbul, Turkey in year 1985 with a BSME, following his MSME in 1986 at Syracuse University and his MBA concentration in finance at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in year 1987, and a brief stint in Turkey. Dr. Gülen went back to RPI for his PhD in ME in year 1992. A professional engineer license holder, Dr. Gülen authored 5 monographs, numerous internal and external articles, 60 plus, GE design practices, Bechtel TARs, and US patents, around 25, on CC performance, cost optimization, data reconciliation, analysis, and modeling. Dr. Gülen is an ASME fellow and has been an active participant in ASME, International Gas Turbine Institute committees and conferences. Çok teşekkür ederiz Can Bey. Çok güzel bir CV'niz mevcut. Bugün sizi severek dinleyeceğiz. Ayrıca ilgi duyan yine salondaki arkadaşlarımız bugünkü canlı yayına ait linki de paylaşabilirler. Çok teşekkür ederim katılımınız için. Buyurun.
Okay. All right. Şimdi nasıl başlayalım? Türkçe başlayalım. Salon genç, belki fazla kişi hatırlamaz ama müzik aletlerini görünce aklıma rahmetli Cem Karaca geldi. konserlerine kaçak giderdik. So, merhaba gençler ve daima genç kalanlar. Okey, buraya üçüncü gelişim benim. Seyhan hocama ve diğer hocalara teşekkür ederim. Beni üçüncü defa burada ağırladıkları için. Ama özür dilerek söyleyelim ki yani buraya gelmemin sebebi onlar değil. Buraya gelmemin sebebi öğrenciler, gençler. Okay. Yapmak istediğim, size tavsiye vermek istemiyorum. Benden öğreneceğiniz fazla bir şey olduğunu da zannetmiyorum. Benim bütün amacım burada sizlere, makine mühendisi kardeşlerime biraz kendi tecrübelerimi paylaşmak ve eğer bu işe gönlünüzü verirseniz, bunu bir meslek değil eğer hobi kabul ederseniz birçok şeyi yapabilirsiniz. Ama yapmanız gereken en önemli şey fundamental'ları çok iyi öğrenmeniz lazım. Size burada biraz bunu anlatmaya çalışacağım. Diğer konuşmalarımda da bunu yaptım. Hidrojen olsun, carbon capture olsun. Hatırlayanlar vardır. Hidrojen konuşmasında basic yani bu iş palavra demeye getirdim yani. Ve bunu yani bir fikir olarak beyan etmedim. Tamamen fundamental thermodynamic argümanlarla gösterilebilir ki hidrojen ekonomi diye bir şey olmaz. Zaten yeni bir şey değil. 1970'lerin başında çıktı, öldü. Yine çıktı, yine ölüyor. O yüzden birinci öğrenmeniz gereken ders, arkadaşlar fundamental'lara sahip olacaksınız. Fundamental'lara sahip olmazsanız hiçbir şeysiniz. Ne yapmak istediğinizi bilmiyorum hayatta. Ne olmak istediğinizi bilmiyorum. Hoca rezümemi okurken belki fark etmişsinizdir. Benim Amerika'ya gidişimdeki ilk amacım orada finans üzerine MBA yapıp dönüp buraya bankerlik yapmak. Olmadı, istemedim. Hoşuma gitmedi, ortam hoşuma gitmedi. İş hoşuma gitmedi. Çünkü yani finans çok önemli bir konu. Türkiye'de finans deyince anlaşılan şey bizim orada gelişmiş Batı ülkelerinde matematiğe dayalı anladığımız finansın çok dışında bir şey. Eğer sebat etseydim, kalsaydım şu anda benim de birçok arkadaşım gibi herhalde Göcek'te bir tane yatım olurdu yani. Olmadı. Sevdiğim işi yaptım ama bir şey anlamanız lazım. Yani paraya, bu gibi şeylere kafayı takmayın. Eğer yaptığınız işte iyiyseniz her zaman para kazanırsınız. Ve her zaman istediğiniz oyuncakları alacak paranız olur. Ondan da isterseniz bahsederim. Şeyin sonunda konuşuruz. Ama yine size yani burada hem bu konuşmada hem de genel olarak anlatmak istediğim şey öğreneceksiniz arkadaşlar. Termodinamiği bileceksiniz. Akışkanlar mekaniğini bileceksiniz. Okay? Isı transferini bileceksiniz. Gaz dinamiğini bileceksiniz. Yani tabii enerji konusunda ben konuşabilirim ancak. O yüzden bunları söylüyorum. Yok başka bir şeylerle uğraşıyorsanız kontrol teorisini bileceksiniz. İstatistiği bileceksiniz. Diferansiyel denklemleri bileceksiniz. Bakın size çok açık söylüyorum. Amerika'da çalışıyorum. Dünyanın en gelişmiş ülkelerinden biri. En gelişmiş teknolojiler, üniversite, şu, bu falan filan. Çalıştığım insanların %90'ının yapmayı bildiği tek şey 4 işlem. Birinci dereceden diferansiyel denklemi çözenlerin sayısı parmakla sayılır. Ve arkadaşlar iyi olmak istiyorsanız bileceksiniz bunu. Okay? Kalkülüs bilmeden, diferansiyel denklem bilmeden bir problemi çözmek için kod yazamazsanız hiçbir şeysiniz. Hiçbir şey olursunuz. Şu olabilir. Çok akıllısınızdır, girersiniz bir işe işte yolunuzu bulursunuz. Teknolojiden management atlarsınız. Harala hurala bir yere gelirsiniz. Dediğim gibi eğer amacınız buysa o tabii çok başka bir şey. Ama yani bir konuda teknik olarak kariyer yapacaksanız ve o teknik olarak yapacağınız kariyerle ileride rahat yaşamayı, para kazanmayı, arkanızda bir takım ayak izleri bırakmayı hayal ediyorsanız, popoyu sıkacaksınız arkadaşlar ve bu işleri öğreneceksiniz. Dibine kadar. Okuyacaksınız. Yayınlara abone olacaksınız. Buna paranızı harcayacaksınız. Ben daha ilk başladığımda kariyerime doğru dürüst para kazanmıyorken bir işi yaptığım zaman gider o işle ilgili kitapları alırdım. Cebimden parayı verir. Benim çalıştığım ofisim evde 3000 kitaplık kütüphanem var. Okumazsanız, bu işin tarihini bilmezseniz, bu işin teorisini bilmezseniz hiçbir alt olmazsınız. Okay? Benim size söylemek istediğim bu. Now, back to the topic. So obviously this is going to be in English. Sorry, I cannot do this in Turkish. I couldn't prepare the slides in Turkish, translate them. That would be, I mean, I can do that, but it's going to create a lot of nuisance. So with my apologies, this is going to be fully in English. There are, I think, about 22, 23 slides. I will try to give you an overview of the underlying thermodynamic fundamentals of the concept of the pressure gain combustion, including its history and some inklings about the future of it. Now, I have to tell you that everybody's called me Hocam. I'm not a Hoca, okay? So I am not an academic. I never spent time in academia after my PhD. Okay, but I am one of the very well-known people in my field. I have written 5 books on these subjects. You can find them in Amazon, more than 60 papers. This pressure gain combustion is not what I'm doing actively, but I did my PhD in early 90s. I got my degree in 92 at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. My thesis advisor was Dr. Late Philip Thompson, who was probably the author of probably the best book on compressible fluid dynamics. My co-advisor was Dr. Joe Shepard. He is now in Caltech. Joe Shepard is probably one of the top 3 people, if not the top still, in detonation in the world. So I have been trained by the best, and those people have been trained by the best. My advisor, Dr. Philip Thompson, was a student of Alan Shapiro in MIT. Okay? So if you are working in this field, let's say gas dynamics, fluid dynamics, and if you don't know who Alan Shapiro is, I am sorry to say you have no business in this field. Dr. Joe Shepard was also a student of Peter Sturtevant, who also died from Caltech. These are the gods of detonation, shock waves. My PhD was on shock wave, liquefaction shock waves in retrograde fluids. The PhD thesis it was experimental and also computational, led to a landmark article in the Journal of Fluid Mechanics, the top publication in our field. So I'm a trained scientist, especially in this field. So that's why I can talk about this with some authority. So I wanted to give you that background. But my fundamental function in my career is as an applied scientist. And I'm an electric power generation person, not aircraft propulsion. Of course, I understand the theory, and I will give you the necessary background on that too, but I wanted to make that clear. So I will go through the theory a little bit. These are very complex systems, all gas turbines, steam turbine, electric power generation, jet engines, etc., etc., etc. They are sometimes mistakenly called as heat engines, but they are not heat engines according to the theory. They are actually energy conversion devices. But the best way to understand such complicated machinery is using the ideal air standard heat engine cycles. They can give you 90% of the information that you need on anything when it comes to the application of a scientific theory to an actual piece of machinery. Of course, now when you are saying heat engine, of course, there should be a heat addition and heat rejection. As far as the heat addition, of course, there is no definition of it in an ideal cycle analysis, but when it comes to the practical machinery, there is only one way still to do it. It's combusting something, some fuel, combustion. And there are two types of that combustion. One is constant pressure heat addition ideal theory, which can be translated into practical application through deflagration combustion. And then there is the constant volume heat addition. That's the second theoretical fundamental, which can be translated into reality through detonation or explosive combustion. And I want to go a little bit into terminology right now, but I want you to understand one thing. Detonation is not explosion. Explosion, as far as underlying the mechanisms, is actually a close relative of deflagration combustion. Detonation is something else. In order to be able to understand all these things, how these theories of deflagration combustion, detonation combustion, constant pressure heat addition, constant volume heat addition into actual turbo machines or prime movers, and which is either gas turbine in this case or an internal combustion engine, piston cylinder engine, but I'm going to focus on the gas turbines. The translation mechanism of that is the mean effective temperature concept. You have to understand that. Okay, that's the distillation of the second law of thermodynamics into actual machine performance. And that's the way that you can understand the best how pressure gain combustion is a big step change in heat engine cycles. And then I will say something about the constant volume heat addition advention. I will go through the cycle hierarchy. I will give you some historical examples. The history of the pressure gain combustion goes back about 140 years. As far as a means for aircraft propulsion, and then power generation, it goes back to the times of the World War II, where, believe it or not, German tries their hand in that also. I will show you an example. And it's important to know the history, because if you know the history, you understand why. Why did these people think about this in 1940s? Or Hans Holwart, I'll talk about his gas turbine around 1908. Why did these guys came up with these ideas, which I'm sure nobody knows, nobody heard of them today? How many people here heard, for example, the name of Hans Holzwarth? Aurel Stodola. Why did these people came up with these ideas, try it, build it, run it, but they went nowhere? If you understand that, you understand the challenges, and then you come and look at 2020s and say, okay, why can't we look at it again? Is there a point in looking at it again? Do we know something now that we didn't know then? I can answer that, no. In fact, if anything, today we know less than those greats of the engineering knew at the end of the 19th century. Less. We know less. But as far as the technology, especially materials technology, manufacturing technology, that computational fluid dynamics, of course, we are light years ahead. And that makes something possible. Those guys thought about it, but couldn't do it. Now, sometimes we are rediscovering it again, but now we can do a little better. And then I will talk about the rotating detonation combustion, which is the final step in the pressure gain combustion today. And its importance is it's more applicable to aircraft propulsion, and especially rocket propulsion to achieve hypersonic speeds. That's why the interest is. But it can also be applied to the land-based gas turbines for electric power generation. Okay, terminology. The ideal theory underlying the pressure gain combustion is constant volume heat addition. The technical tool or the theoretical tool that we use in order to analyze it to prime mover application, it's the air standard cycle, which defines an ideal heat engine. Now, pressure gain combustion is the actual heat addition process. And pressure gain combustor is the actual combustion hardware. Pressure gain combustion or PGC process is shock wave driven, all right? And it's discontinuous and intermittent, because think about it. Think about fluid dynamics and think about the Bernoulli equation. How can you have a flow system where pressure increases? Impossible, right? Well, there's only one possibility, and if you know, again, then you have to refer to the gas dynamics part of the fluid dynamics. A standing shock wave is the only means to have a flow with pressure increase. Now, there are different mechanisms of pressure gain combustion. Number one is pulse detonation combustion. It's an intermittent process. The frequency is about tens of hertz, okay? Which means that in 1 second, you are having like 20, 30, 40, 60, 80 boom, boom, boom, boom explosions. Rotating detonation combustion is an improvement on pulse detonation combustion because its intermittency frequency of creating those detonation waves is tens of kilohertz. Okay, so it's a more smooth mechanism of achieving pressure gain and extra power. Now, there is something called pulsed combustion. The missing term is detonation. Okay, that's something else. That's the World War II German V1 buzz bomb. I'll describe that. And there is also something called wave rotor that has been brought up in 1940s as a supercharger to be used in conjunction with internal combustion engines, piston cylinder engines. But today, the interest is on pressure detonation engine or pressure detonation rocket engine. That's for propulsion. And also a gas turbine with pressure detonation combustion or rotating detonation combustion for land-based power generation. Research activities are taking place on both fronts. Of course, the quote-unquote sexier one is rocket propulsion. All right, air standard heat engine cycles. So those are the theoretical cycles that facilitate the simple quantitative and qualitative analysis. They are known as air standard, which means that the working fluid is air. And there are three major assumptions: pure working fluid air and calorically perfect gas, okay, CP constant. That makes the calculations very, very easy, okay? And then it's based on external heat addition, so therefore you do not have to worry about the complexities of the combustion process, which is more of a black art than anything else. And then the processes are internally reversible, so you don't have to worry about all the other component efficiencies and pressure losses and this is that. So practically all air standard cycle of engineering of interest have 4 key processes. Well, what are the cycles of interest in engineering? Can anybody name me one? No? Otto, Diesel, Brayton? They are all 4 process cycles: compression, heat addition, expansion, heat rejection. Why? Any ideas? What is the ultimate heat engine cycle? Carnot? Anybody heard about Carnot cycle? That's why. There are 3 types of heat addition in air standard cycle analysis. Constant temperature, CTHA, which is the Carnot or Rankine cycle. Carnot is the ideal, thermodynamic ideal. it's how the second law of thermodynamics comes into the play when you are making analysis of power cycles or propulsion cycles. I have a book on that. You may want to try it, that I explain it better. If I go into the depths here, basically you are going to fall asleep probably, and then curse me. So I'm not going to touch it too much. I'm going to cover it very lightly. There is one practical cycle actually, Rankine steam cycle, where you have constant temperature heat addition. Why? Because boiling, right? In the boiler you boil water, but that's only part of the total heat addition process in a steam boiler. So therefore, CTHA is of no interest for all practical purposes. There are the other two important heat addition mechanisms. One is the constant pressure, CPHA, which is the basis of the Brayton cycle. Brayton cycle is the underlying air standard cycle for the gas turbines. And the other one is the constant volume heat addition, CVHA, which is the process in the Atkinson cycle. Atkinson cycle is a special case of a piston cylinder internal combustion engine cycle, where the expansion stroke is extended to near ambient pressure. There are car engines, I think they are still manufactured, I don't know, I have to check, Toyota or Mazda, based on Atkinson cycle. So if no limit is imposed on the cycle pressure ratio, for a given cycle heat addition, the most efficient air standard cycle is the Atkinson cycle, all right? This is why piston cylinder internal combustion engines that we have today, not the ones in your car, but the ones that are produced by MAN or Wärtsilä firing natural gas to make power, like these are 20 megawatt engines, their cycle efficiency is close to 50%. Today, the best gas turbine cycle has an efficiency of around 43, 44%. The latest advanced class 8J cycles by OEMs like Mitsubishi, General Electric, and Siemens. But the best efficiency is still from the piston cylinder engines, because the mechanism of heat addition in those engines is via explosion taking place at the top end of the piston stroke at near constant volume. Now, for a given cycle pressure ratio, if there is an imposition on the system that, okay, this is the highest pressure that you can have, and that's a reality in the gas turbines because you have to build it. You have to build that machine. It's not a thick-walled cylinder where you can have an explosion and pressure ratio hitting hundreds, okay? You cannot have that. The highest cycle pressure ratio in the most advanced gas turbines is around 23, 24 to 1. If there is a limit on that and cycle heat addition, then the most efficient cycle is the Brayton cycle, which is the gas turbine cycle, which is described by a constant pressure heat addition. So this is the cycle, Brayton. It's also known as Joule cycle. That's what Europeans would like to call it, for obvious reasons. Joule is European, Brayton is American. It's a steady-state flow process. The practical machine is, of course, open cycle. Air comes in, exhaust gas goes out. But the air standard cycle is a closed cycle with heat addition and heat rejection as idealized processes. And the heat addition process is modeled as constant pressure. The practical hardware is, of course, a combustor of the gas turbine. The mechanism that's taking place inside that combustor is a deflagration combustion. Pressure loss is about 4 or 5% in the actual machines. So very close to the assumption. Now, this is Atkinson. It's also known as Humphrey cycle. It's bullshit, of course. I don't know how, I know how Humphrey came about, but this is one very clear sign of the lemming mentality, which is prevalent in the scientific circles today. Nobody knows the first thing about thermodynamics. They hear it from, oh, okay, John said the cycle that's describing the pulse detonation combustion engine is Humphrey. Okay, it's Humphrey. Humphrey cycle is the same Atkinson cycle. Humphrey in 1909 wrote a paper, which is a quite interesting one. It's called Internal Combustion Pump. And when you read the paper, which is not readable, but, I mean, if you spend the time and look at it and do the thermodynamic analysis on a temperature, entropy, or pressure volume diagram, it's identical to the Atkinson cycle. Of course, Atkinson came with that cycle named after him, 1882. That paper was published in 1909. And it's also wrong. I will touch upon it a little bit. But anyway, here you have a constant volume process. Now, if you have constant volume process, of course, and you are thinking about a gas turbine, okay, you go, I mean, here is the compressor, steady state, steady flow, okay, comes in, goes into the combustion system, it's taking place at constant volume, pressure goes up. How are we going to push that damn working fluid through that combustor? You can't. So therefore, the process that is happening in the I don't want to call it combustor, in the heat addition device of an Atkinson cycle is operating according to the principles of uniform state, uniform flow. So which is basically a pistons closed, and it happens, it can, by the nature of it, it cannot happen continuously. It has to happen discontinuously, and that's exactly what happens inside the engine of your car. So it's the Atkinson cycle is the air standard proxy for an internal combustion engine. Practical hardware is piston cylinder. Mechanism is explosion combustion. Again, not detonation, explosion. So actually there is flame propagation there also according to the deflagration theory. It's quasi-constant volume. It's not exactly constant volume. And by the nature of the process taking place in a constant closed system, by heat addition, pressure rises during combustion. And that's the efficiency advantage. Now, what is the proxy for a gas turbine, which is using a steady state, steady flow heat addition device? Let's call it a combustor. Well, then the fundamental thermodynamic equation that's describing the process changes. It's not the Humphreys or Atkinson cycle, it's a different cycle, and I wrote a paper on it. Anyway, that's the ideal air standard proxy. The practical hardware is detonation tubes. As I said, in order to be able to have, so you can describe the cycle as an ideal cycle with the assumption of pressure rise in a steady state flow process, but you cannot make it happen in reality. There is only one way. As I said, it's a shock wave. And the shock wave and combustion is described by a detonation wave and detonation combustion. And that can take place in a device that's going to operate by necessity intermittently. Again, it's not the ideal constant volume process. It's quasi-constant volume. And again, the same thing happens, pressure rise during the combustion. Okay, so why is that important? So why are we breaking our heads? I mean, I don't expect you to understand this, okay, just by looking at it. Probably you will not understand it after I described it also, but this is the fundamental thermodynamics. If you are interested in these things, this is the first thing that you have to understand. So you have to work it out for yourself if this is of interest to you. So again, by the second law of thermodynamics, the maximum theoretical efficiency that you can get from a heat engine is described by a Carnot engine, okay? And Carnot engine is basically a system operating between temperature level at T3 and the low temperature at T1, which is typically taken as the ambient. The efficiency is very simple. Maybe you will remember this. But as I said, in practice, it's very, very, very difficult to build a cycle that's going to mimic the Carnot engine. And all the engine cycles that we have are poor attempts to approximate a Carnot cycle. So let's say a gas turbine. Gas turbine is a Brayton cycle. So the thermodynamic limit is 1. Do I have the top of that? 3. And here, so that's square. That's the thermodynamic entitlement. This is the Brayton cycle for the gas turbine. You compress, transfer heat at constant pressure, and then you expand and reject heat at constant pressure again. So you can see that it is filling graphically only a fraction of the Carnot cycle area. So that's why that is the best that we can do. But then you are looking at it and say, well, I want to analyze this cycle, but I want to kind of stick to this formulation for the efficiency of that cycle. 1 maximum temperature, 1 minimum temperature, that's it. If you want to do that, then you have to calculate the mean effective temperature of the heat addition process. What does that mean? From 2 to 3, you are adding heat to the cycle and increasing the temperature from 2, 3, okay? But you can replace it by a hypothetical process with the same entropy change, but heat transfer taking place at an average temperature. That average temperature is this. It's a logarithmic average. It comes from the theory. All right, so therefore, if you look at your Brayton cycle, okay, which is not even close graphically to a Carnot cycle, becomes identical to a Carnot in shape. All right? So then it tells you that in order to design a cycle, and in order to design a cycle, gas turbine cycle, you have 2 knobs: heat addition maximum temperature and the cycle pressure ratio. In order to design a cycle with the best possible efficiency closest to the underlying Carnot, what do you have to do? You have to increase that mean effective temperature of heat addition. There are ways you can do it. Number 1, you can increase the cycle pressure ratio, okay? If you do that, you can visualize even here that Brayton cycle is going to basically compress. So mean effective temperature is going to be, and also mean effective, I didn't describe it here, but mean effective low temperature are going to be very close to the isothermal limits of the Carnot. And this is what we do, actually, in what type of engines? Aircraft engines. In aircraft engines, the pressure ratios are very high, of the order of 40s. That's why they are more efficient than the heavy-duty industrial gas turbines. Or you can have reheat heat addition, which I don't show here. And one other mechanism is pressure gain combustion. What do you do? Okay, you have the same compressor, but instead of a constant pressure heat addition, you go to constant volume heat addition. And you, again, target the same cycle maximum temperature. But what happens now is, what did you do by doing that? On top of what you got from your compressor, you added pressure increase. So you have a much higher mean effective heat addition temperature now, which is much, much closer to the ideal Carnot limit. And by doing that, you are increasing, on paper, ideal air standard basis, the efficiency of your cycle, okay? So this is the advantage or power of constant volume heat addition, all right? So I'm not going to belabor this more, but in one sentence, pressure gain combustion increases the mean effective heat addition temperature of the cycle tremendously. Now, of course, in reality, you are not going to get that big bang for the buck with the hardware that you have, but I will show you some numbers. You can still get a very, very appreciable efficiency improvement. So that's the driver. Another way to understand, again, graphically, at a very quick look, the advantage of constant volume heat addition is this reduction in the entropy generation. This is the original Brayton. This is the, I don't know if you can see it, but constant volume heat addition. You reduce the entropy generation, and I mean, in layman's terms, you reduce the entropy generation in any process, you increase the efficiency of it. All right. So this is the cycle. Again, this is a very busy diagram. All I want to show here is, if you have this, you have a, let's say, heat source or limit of heat addition determined by temperature at 0.3, and your maximum heat engine theoretical efficiency is that Carnot efficiency of that square. This is how the cycles stack up in terms of efficiency of how you can fill graphically that box. Okay, and then the takeaway, quick takeaway is that you have to either go with Atkinson or you have to go with that CVHA. Anyway, so again, I put this here to illustrate you that there is a lot of fundamental, and to do these calculations, once you sit down and go through them, they are easy, especially with the ideal air standard assumption and the perfect gas. But you have to do these calculations not only formulaically, but also numerically, so that it hits you in the head that, okay, this is what's happening. And I'm telling you, there are very, very few people today who can do this properly. It's a sad fact. So these are some numbers. E-class. E-class is the heavy-duty industrial gas turbines use electric power generation are classified across according to their turbine inlet temperatures. E-class is the old technology from the 1980s. In the 1990s, the technology evolved to F-class. E-class was, I think, around 1200, 1300 degrees Celsius turbine inlet temperature. In 1990s, General Electric first, and then all the other major OEMs introduced F-class, 1400 degrees Celsius turbine inlet temperature. In early 2000s, GE introduced H-class with steam-cooled turbine, 1500 degrees Celsius. And in 2011, Mitsubishi introduced a J-class with 1600 degrees Celsius turbine inlet temperature. So this is the classification. So E-class, I use the E-class as an example, which is an archaic technology. It's still being used. It's a workhorse, very mature technology, very dependable technology. It's actually used widely in syngas applications, refinery applications. It has low efficiency, but it can be improved with pressure gain combustion tremendously. So that cycle is simple cycle is about 35.5% efficiency, nothing to write to home about. As I said, modern machines today can reach 44%. And if you do a combined cycle, anybody needs a help with the combined cycle theory? Okay, well, let's do it. I don't know. It's included in the price of admission. So if you look at that Brayton cycle, you see that triangular area here that can be used to generate extra power. Instead of rejecting the heat of the exhaust gas at T4 to the ambient, you can use it in a boiler, which is called a heat recovery steam generator, to make steam, which you can use in a steam turbine to make additional power. From an ideal cycle analysis perspective, that 1, 2, 3, 4 Brayton cycle becomes 1, 2, 3, 4C and 1. So you see, you cover the much larger portion of the original Carnot. So if you do that, an E-class Brayton cycle, combined cycle, is 53.2%. These are rating numbers, so it's again, meh. So this is what you can do if you say that, okay, I'm going to take away that combustor of that E-class gas turbine, and I'm going to replace it with a pressure gain combustor. If you do that, and if you keep the same mean effective heat addition temperature, you're not getting much impact. But by doing the CVHA, oh, by the way, look, TIT did not change. Now you change the TIT, use a pressure gain combustion, your mean effective temperature is much higher. Now you get 60.7% efficiency. That's entitlement, okay? So which means this is the Humphrey, and this is the CVHA, even higher, if you can do it right. And this is the Carnot factor. So Carnot factor is the ratio of the actual ideal cycle to the Carnot cycle efficiency. That 0.75 is a very, very important number. Today in energy field, especially in prime mover, that Carnot factor hovers around 0.75. So after 1 century of development, we kind of hit a plateau. So whatever we do in terms of design, playing with the pressure ratios and the turbine inlet temperatures and whatnot, we are getting around 0.75. And that's, I mean, the data is in my books and papers. I didn't publish it here, so if you're interested, you can look it up. And actually, I found out on my gas turbine engineering, but my gas turbine book is available on Scrib-D as a PDF free. Assholes pirated it, so you can you can download it and look it up. Data is there. 0.75 is a very, very solid number. So, which means that as an engineer, and this is practically what I do. Some mad inventor comes to you and say, "Oh, hey guys, I have this invention which is going to give you that efficiency." Okay, you can immediately check it. All right, so hey, what is your temperature, high cycle temperature? That. All right, if you had to build a Carnot engine, which is by John Ahmet'in devri daim makinesi, okay? Carnot engine is that. So if you built it, and there are many people who claim it, all right, let's say you have done it, multiplied by 0.75, that's going to give you a very, very good estimate of what you can do with the technology that is available to us today. So this constant volume heat addition with steady state, steady flow system can give you a jump, which is a significant jump from 0.75 to 0.8, and the efficiency can hit 65. So the potential of improvement is 53 to 65, 12 points. The reality is, I'll show you. So if you take all the non-idealities that is going to be available in the hardware maybe 3% or 4 percentage points, which is huge, huge. So that's why pressure gain combustion, especially pulse detonation combustion in 2000s was quite hot and under investigation to improve the power generation cycle efficiency. All right, so 1908, Holzwart's Verpuffungsturbine. The Germans are something. I mean, who can come up with a name like Verpuffungsturbine? What is Verpuffung? Do you know? That's what it is, Verpuffung. Why is? Because that's his machine. You can see it in the Deutsches Museum in Munich. Around there are cylinders where those explosions are taking place, like the explosions inside your car engine's cylinder. And at the top, it's on a vertical axis like that. There is a Curtis wheel. So what happens is, and by the way, very interesting, this machine has been built and operated. And so there is a blower, compressor, which is taking air, increasing its pressure, and it's squeezing it or into that chamber. There are many of them around the machine. Then the valve is closed on both sides. Ignites, in a closed volume, closed space. You introduce fuel air mixture, you ignite. What happens? Boom, explosion. After that, that valve opens. What happens? That high pressure, high temperature gas goes and hits the Curtis wheel turbine. So that's it. This is an Atkinson cycle gas turbine. Now, even more interesting, this is a combined cycle. 1905, 1908. The guy designed, so what do you do with the 800 degrees Fahrenheit exhaust from that gas, from that turbine? He took it, he put it through a heat exchanger, he made steam. That steam is sent through a steam turbine, and that steam turbine is driving that turbo blower. There is your combined cycle, 1905, 1908. When did we start in United States and Europe into combined cycles seriously for electric power applications? Late 1960s. You see? Now, can you find another Hans Holzwart today? Not a chance. I told you, they can barely do 4 basic operations in math. That's all. I can today send it to all the universities in United States, Europe. Hey, take a look at this. Describe to me what's happening here. I would say successful reply rate wouldn't go beyond 10%, 15%. Well, anyway, the guy did it. And this is the intermittency. This process, of course, by nature is not continuous. Compress, squeeze, close the valves, boom, open the valves, purge, repeat. So that frequency determines how this intermittent process is going to be a good mimic of a steady state process. So you have to basically squeeze that time. If you do it like Holzwart did, it's like poof, poof, poof. Okay, if you improved on it and do it at a high frequency, it's going to like. That is it. This is pressure gain combustion. All right. 1944, Germany is under attack. Russians are coming from the east. Americans are coming from the west. Hitler is running out of men, and all the engineers and highly skilled technicians in German companies are called to fight on the Eastern Front. How are you going to protect those guys? Well, one way to protect them was coming up with bright ideas like these and to make them work on that. All right, believe it or not, that was that was one of the main reasons behind that German supremacy in wonder weapon production and development in the Second World War. Now, around the turn of the century, Germany was by far the most highly educated nation in the world. Not even close. Okay, not even close in the rest. The country was teeming with Herr Professor Doctors, okay, applied scientists, not run-of-the-mill engineers or garage tinkerers like Edison. Edison is nothing. He's a garage tinkerer and mostly charlatan, but who was laborious and good salesman. And of course, if you try 10,000 of stupidities, you are bound to hit something smart at some point. Germans were not like that. Everything came from the theory first. All right, and then they came up with very interesting stuff. The most well-known is maybe the first jet engine. They designed it, built it, and used it in the war. And then their Walter submarines. They even tried to put gas turbines into tanks, on which I am working on a book right now. But the main thing under those crazy ideas was to keep the engineers working. And they were lucky, because Nazis were stupid and evil people, but especially Himmler. Himmler was fascinated by harebrained ideas of wonder weapons, and he took over the technological development under the aegis of SS and created employment for these people. And soon enough, of course, if you have so many Herr Professor Doctors who are very well versed in thermodynamics and stuff, okay? I mean, a German engineer from 1940s, I mean, if you want to compare them with today's engineers, I mean, it's a laughing matter. It's not even a laughing matter. I mean, these guys are something. And they came up with this jet engine. It is called IPTL 8000, developed in BMW, and it's basically pressure gain combustion engine with a rotating combustor. And why rotating combustor and tubes? Because that's what I said. How do you? This is an engine, steady state, steady flow device, which is going to power an airplane. Okay, they want to increase the efficiency over what they have at that time. The Yumo 004 engine of the Messerschmitt 262 was around 14% efficiency. With this one, they could get like 26% efficiency. I mean, beyond quantum leap. And the theory is exactly the same that GE did in 2000s, I will show you. That rotating tubes, closing, opening valves, synchronized with the rotation, allows the tube closed, ignition, detonation, combustion, valve opens due to the rotation, goes to the turbine, boom. The cycle is basically that CVHA cycle. And I did the calculations. It's in my book I have a book out there on German World War II superchargers, it's a very interesting book. I mean, if you are interested in those kind of things, I describe it there also, did the calculations, and yeah, it holds. I mean, this is a 26% efficiency engine. By the end of the war, they were able to build the test stand, but they couldn't run it. Maybe they ran the combustion, but not the full engine, and then the Russians came. And, I think they burned the documents and whatnot, so this is what's left. Now, this is pulsed combustion, not pulsed detonation combustion. I'm just going to describe it to you. This is the V1. Okay, German V1 engine. British know it as buzz bomb. Why? Because of the noise it makes. Remember, What did I tell you? Holzwart's Verpuffungsturbine is what? Puff, puff, puff, low frequency. In this one, the valves that you are seeing at front of that engine open up very closely, okay? So instead of puff, puff, puff, you have like, and on that machine, when it's flying and coming close to you, it makes that terrifying noise of that, and that's why they call it buzz bump. What's happening here is basically valves are opening, closing, and admitting the air because the missile is flowing forward, air is coming in, fuel injected, valve closes, ignition, and then from the tube back, that hot gas is going and pushing the gas forward. The pressure ratio, pressure gain is very modest, about 1.2, okay? Because the combustion inside that thing is not detonation combustion, it's still deflagration combustion. All right? And there's also this acoustic resonance that's happening in that place, in that room. It's a very simple engine. I highly encourage you to go to the YouTube and look at the modern V1 engine replicas to see how it operates. Okay, very interesting. I mean, and just by watching them, you will understand many of these concepts, at least visually. Turbo compound engine, Napier Nomad. After the war, Americans and British were, of course, I mean, they also developed their own jet engines to be used in the military aircraft. Of course, Russians did also. But there is, until in the 5 years after the war, there is still a debate going on. Which is going to be better for especially military aircraft applications as a propulsion system, because there was one drawback of the gas turbines of the time. They were very, very inefficient, consumed a lot of fuel. So for a while, at least 10 years after the war, they looked at improving the fuel efficiency of the piston cylinder engines. And one outcome of that was Napier Nomad by the Brits. What's happening is here, so the main machine is a diesel engine, okay? I mean, a gasoline engine, standard. But it's using this contraption here. Air coming in, goes through an axial compressor, intercooler, centrifugal compressor, okay? And that charged air is coming into the cylinder. So this is supercharging or turbocharging, and then high temperature gas coming out of the exhaust of the cylinder bank. Instead of going out, it goes through a second combustion chamber, that number 3 over there, and then it goes through a turbine and making extra power. So this is called turbo compounding. It's also a way of increasing the cycle pressure with combustion. It was a very efficient engine, and actually it's still the most efficient piston engine ever, but it was very, very complicated and very heavy, and therefore it could not compete with the gas turbines, very lightweight engines, so it just died away. But it's still the technology, the turbo compound, you can look it up. I think it's still being used in some truck engines. Now there is also wave rotor, which is known under the name of the Comprex, which was another way of supercharging piston cylinder engines. It is closer in spirit to detonation engines because the pressure addition to the charge air of the engine is taking place in that rotating annular scheme, via shock waves and expansion waves. Because just like that German BW engine that I showed you, that thing is rotating in the middle between the, well, in this case, no gas turbine, but in that case it was rotating between the compressor and turbine and creating that pressure by firing. Here, it's again by the opening and closing of the valves, and for a moment, both streams are trapped inside that rotating thing from the hot, high-pressure gas to the low temperature, low-pressure charge air. Pressure is transferred through the shock waves. So it has been tried, it has been applied. I think it's still being used, as I said. I'm not sure. Mazda or Toyota, you have to look it up. But that's another example of pressure gain. And it can be turned into a pressure gain combustor. So that instead of this engine supercharging, you put the thing between the compressor and the turbine and inject fuel also inside and fire it inside that thing. So this is a wave rotor enhanced gas turbine idea. It didn't go anywhere because the pressure ratio, pressure increase of the wave rotor is also weak. So doesn't give you that oomph that detonation can give. GE, so in 2000s, so this pulse detonation combustion idea goes back to early 1950s with an interest in aircraft propulsion, but didn't go anywhere, was dropped. In 2000 again, especially with interest from military research agencies in the United States, they started looking at it, and GE looked at it, and with an eye to application, this pulse detonation combustor to a gas turbine. Tests were done, they were successful, but pulse detonation is a very, very difficult thing to do in the aircraft engines because of vibrations. As I said, the frequency is very low, so it goes like bum, bum, bum, bum, bum, bum, bum. And also it has very detrimental impact on the turbine downstream because of that intermittent nature of the flow. But anyway, it was done and forgotten. There is only one example of a pulse detonation engine in flight. It was in 2008. It's a Mickey Mouse aircraft. This is the engine. These are the detonation tubes. You can see that there is no turbine at the end. So all that does is create that high pressure intermittent exhaust to propel the aircraft. And it achieved some modest success. There was no other actual application. The frequency of the detonations was 80 hertz, which means that in 1 second, 80 detonations took place. You can read about it. And this is what it can do to a gas turbine. This is a J-class machine, so one of the most advanced gas turbines out there. At the time I had done the calculations, the reported efficiency was 41.5%. If you equipped a pulse pressure gain combustion, basically with a pulse detonator combustion, you can increase the efficiency of that machine to about 49.1%. This is more or less a realistic number that I had done when I was in GE based on the findings of the research done in GE. So, which means that this is going to give you 8 percentage point improvement in simple cycle efficiency, which is going to translate to about maybe 3-4% in combined cycle. So that's a big gain. I mean, if you have a 61% combined cycle, let's say with this J-class gas turbine, you can easily achieve 65% if everything works out, but the research was stopped, nothing. And then recently, rotating detonation combustion came. The idea here You can see the comparison of the pulse detonation versus rotating detonation, combustion, and engines. As I said, pulse detonation, combustion, and pulse detonation engine, again, if your focus is aircraft propulsion, PDC has very low chance. Okay, has a lot of problems, and the root of the problem is the low frequency. This rotating detonation, again, the same thing. I mean, the mechanism is detonation combustion, but the frequency goes from, remember that flying example had 80 hertz frequency. Rotating detonation engines can go to 10 kilohertz of efficiency. More smoother flow, okay, and more closer approximation of a steady state, steady flow process. This is the research that is going on heavily right now. And the focus is especially to make it an aircraft jet engine is difficult, but to make it a rocket engine, and when you make it a rocket engine, what you're talking about is, again, just like that prototype flight engine with the PDE, there is no turbine. You just get the thrust from the rotating, detonating combustor much, much, much easier. And there are companies funded by venture capital. Also, there is military research going on hypersonics. And this rotating detonation combustion can be one way, either as is, okay, so for a missile as the main engine, may or may not be feasible, but the real interest is in the ramjet version. You know what ramjet is? There is no compressor. The compression of the air is happening during the flight by the forward Mach 3, Mach 4, whatever speed of the engine. So therefore you just fly, and then this is how the engine, Pratt & Whitney engine of the Blackbird SR-71 is working at high Mach number flight. It changes from a gas turbine to a turbojet to a ramjet. Here you are combining the rotating detonation rocket engine with ramjet so that you can have a continuous operating envelope from start-off or takeoff to Mach 6 in one single engine. So this is still research, active research, it's funded research, and it's a very good area, especially for people who are looking into graduate study, because how the rotating detonation is happening is not well understood. So there is a lot of research that needs to be done. So if it is one of your interests, this kind of combustion and engine applications, so there is some future there. It's not guaranteed that it's going to go anywhere. I mean, over 140 years, I gave you many examples. Pressure gain, combustion ideas and applications came and went, didn't end up with anything as a commercial product, successful product. This may also be the same, maybe some super secret hypersonic missile from Chinese and Americans, I don't know, remains to be seen. But at least it's at least from fundamental thermodynamic perspective, it's a worthwhile idea. If it can be pulled off, fine. If it not, maybe it can get you a PhD. And GE restarted again, the same thing. In 2010, they had dropped looking at the gas turbine with pulse detonation combustion. Now they are restarting again to do the same thing with a rotating detonation combustion. And they are working with funding from the Department of Energy and with partners from university and others to take an old F-class engine and transfer and remove its existing combustion system and replace it with an RDC and test it and see if they can pull it off. If they can pull it off, that's going to be a very important thing. electric power generation area. And again, there are no guarantees. It's very difficult. There's a lot of R&D that needs to be done, and it can fizzle again very fast because these are, I mean, high, very capital-intensive applications. Developing a new gas turbine engine is today not going overboard in technology is $500 million to $1 billion investment. Okay, so it cannot be done easily. And this is going to be even more than that because of the new technologies. And the concluding remarks, it's an old concept, pressure gain combustion, going back 100 plus years. It has been implemented in many variants. I gave you some examples. They did not make it to the mainstream. It has significant gas turbine cycle efficiency boost potential. Therefore, it's going to be quite important, especially in the current climate of decarbonization. Anyway, you can get efficiency to burn less fuel and make power is an important thing. The current research focus is rotating detonation combustion. A lot of work needs to be done. There are applications in propulsion and electric power generation. And significant R&D and funding is underway. So as I said, for those of you who are interested in this particular area of mechanical engineering, it might be a good area of graduate study. And with that, thank you.
Dr. Can Gülen'in anlattıklarından ve bu konuda literatürü ve çalışmaları takip ettiğim için çıkardığım sonuç, özellikle sizi dinledikten sonra termodinamik, lisans düzeyindeki termodinamik syllabus'ının çok ayrıntılı bir değişiklikten geçmesi gerektiğini düşünüyorum. Çünkü biz termodinamikte alan öğrenciler yakın veya uzak zamanda bilirler, bilmiyorum gaz türbinlerinde nasıl anlatılıyor ama söylediğimiz şudur, işte Carnot Cycle'a ulaşamazsınız, yaklaşabilirsiniz. Aynı olanda iki tane hipotetik çevrim vardır, Erikson ve Stirling. Onun dışında işte Rankine ve Brayton'da %40'larda 42'lerde kalır deriz. O nedenle bu anlattıklarınız çok çok önemli. Özellikle lisans eğitimi açısından çok teşekkür ediyorum o nedenle. Sadece comment yapacağım dedim ama bir de sorum olacak. Şimdi bütün bunlar internal reversible process olduğunu kabul ettiğimiz için değil mi? Yani içten tersine internal reversible yani DQ TDS'ye eşit.
Yani yani şimdi okulda bilmiyorum bu zamanlarda hangi termodinamikte hangi kitapları okutuyorsunuz ha? Bizim zamanımızda Van Weylen's Zonta okumuştuk.
Evet, onu okutmak istiyoruz ama şu anda o değil.
Şimdi Shapiro ile şey mi? Moran Shapiro.
Yok hayır, Çengel okutuluyor şimdi. Aslında yani Van Weylen ve Zontak'ın Borknakke ile beraber son versiyonları, ben 8. versiyonunu biliyorum. Çok daha iyi.
Şimdi açık konuşacağım yani, o yüzden hani Yusuf Çengel hocaya da saygısızlık etmek istemem. Hiçbir hocaya saygısızlık etmek istemem. Bugün yani okullarda okuduğunuz termodinamik kitapların çoğu garbage. Yani, garbage. Ya bana ne anlatıyorsun arkadaş? Bu zamanında Willard Gibbs bunu 1800'lerde yapmış, bitmiş. Geç. Ne işe yarıyor? Ne çıkarıyoruz biz? Mühendis mi çıkarıyoruz? Size açıklamaya çalıştım. Eğer mühendis olacaksanız O okuduğunuz termodinamik kitaplarında öğrendiğiniz şeylerle hiçbir bok olmazsınız. Again, excuse my French. Hiçbir halt olmazsınız. Second law thermodynamics'i anlayamazsınız. Öyle bir tane okumak, bir tane okumak, efendim işte bilmem ne textbook'unu okumak. Yani Van Weilen Sonntag süper kitaptır ama oradan bir şey öğrenmezsiniz. Oradan öğrendiğinizle size alırım GE'ye, gösteririm bir gaz türbünü, bana bunu bir anlat derim, anlatamazsınız. Bir takım salaklar da Carnot cycle'ına burun çevirirler. O ne kadar basit. O kadar basit değil. Her şeyin altında o yatıyor. O yüzden bir tane kitap yazdım. Second Law Analysis of Heat Engines diye. Okay, orada anlatıyorum bunları. Ama bunları anlamanız en az 15 sene ister. Bu işe kafa yoracaksınız. Size burada bu kadar şey anlattım, bir tane soru çıkaramadınız. Normal, ben de sizin yerinizde olsam ben de çıkaramazdım. Ya bunlar son derece kompleks şeyler ve bu, this is a dying art. This is a dying art. Söylüyorum, inanın bana yani. Bugün bana istediğiniz okuldan istediğiniz PhD öğrencisini getirin, yani yerleri silerim onunla. Caltech'i, Maltech'i, şurası burası fark etmez. Bütün yaptıkları gelip kod yazmak, bilmem ne yapmak, işte ANSYS'te 100 tane simulation yapmak. Anlat bakayım bana entropi nedir desen hiç. Ama önemi var. Önemi var. Üzerine çalıştığınız hardware'in nasıl olduğunu, ne olabileceğini, ne olamayacağını anlamanız için onların hepsini bilmeniz lazım. İşte Holtz var, şunlar, bunlar, Stodola'lar. Bundan 100 sene evvel bunu yapıyorlardı. Bakın Stodola'nın Gas and Steam Turbines diye kitabı var. 1927 İngilizce tercümesi bulabilirsiniz PDF'ini. Bir açın bakın. Açın bakın sonundan bir kısım, gaz türbini kısmını. Hadi okuyun. Okuyun ve bana anlatın. Anlatamazsınız. Yok. Moran Shapiro'yla, efendim Van Weilen Sonntag'la, Dr. Chenge'nin termodinamik kitabından öğrendiklerinizle onları yapamazsınız. Adamda hesap makinesi yok. Kompüter yok. Excel spreadsheet yok. O kadar hesapları yapacak. Bu hesaplar çok kolaydır. Excel spreadsheet'te bakın ben size yanıma oturtayım bunu. Bir saat geçireyim sizden neler. Yani size çağ atlattırırım. Anlıyor musunuz? O kadar kolay bunlar. Ya ama bakayım vereyim ben size. Aslan parçası al bakalım kağıt, pencil. Hadi bakalım. Yap bu hesapları. Nasıl yapacaklar? Adamlar bütün grafik yollara gitmişler. Şimdi bir şeyin üzerinde bu kadar çalışırsanız, bir tane Brayton cycle'ının efficiency'ni hesaplamak için bilmem ne kadar hesaptan ve graphical şeyden geçerseniz, o anda önünüze o kadar çok şeyler açılıyor ki, normalde göremeyeceğiniz şeyleri görmeye başlıyorsunuz. Adamlar görmüşler, bunu yapmışlar. Ve bu cycle'ları, adını söyleyeyim, describe etmişler. Holtzwarth'ın gaz türbini üzerine Stodol'a 30 sayfa ayırmış, gitmiş onun testini yapmış, bilmem ne yapmış, çizimlerini yayınlamış, cycle'ını yayınlamış. Ya bunlar yapılmış yani, her şey yapılmış. Ya bakın, şu wave rotor kompleks, bu kompleks 1940'larda şeyden çıktı, BBC, Brown Boveri Company'den çıktı. Siz şimdi 1940'ları düşünün. 1940'larda mühendissiniz. Bütün bunları okumuşsunuz. Allame-i cihansınız. Ulan şu nasıl aklınıza geliyor yani? Gelebilir mi? Şunu tahayyül edebiliyor musunuz? Nasıl çalışıyor? O shock wave'ler, o expansion wave'ler, onlar nasıl interact ediyorlar? Ya. Çünkü adam bunu nasıl yapıyor? Oturuyor, hesaplıyor, bilmem ne yapıyor, işte yapacağım, 20 tane diagram çiziyor. O şeyi alıyor mesela, bu rotating bir silindir. Onu alıyor, açıyor, 2D'ye getiriyor. Bak düşünebiliyor musun? Yani three-dimensional konsepti two-dimensional konsepte çeviriyor. Onun wave analysisini yapıyor, bilmem ne yapıyor. Ve onları yaparken o arada tabii burada anlatmakla göremeyeceğim 1001 tane şeyi görüyor. Ve onlarla bir şeyler dizayn ediyor, yapıyor, çalışıyor. Bazen bir yere gidiyor, bazen bir yere gitmiyor. Yani bu işler böyle. Ya bilmiyorum anlatabildim mi yani. Ama yani demek istediğim yani çalışacaksınız arkadaş yani. Öğreneceksiniz ve zaman geçecek. 4 seneyi birlikte otururuz, 4 senelik okuldan sonra hiçbir şey olmazsınız. Ben de olmadım yani. Olamaz yani bu kadar information load olmaz. Ne yapacaksınız? Oturacaksınız, çalışacaksınız. Graduate study yapacaksınız. Graduate study'nin sonunda bile olmayabilir. Yaptığınız işte bunları şey yapacaksınız. Önünüze bir şey geldiği zaman tamam, okey ne yapıyorsun? Ben sabah 9'da işe geliyorum, bana bir şey veriyorlar. Onu yapıyorum, 5'te çıkıyorum, gidiyorum. Olmaz. Anlayacaksınız, bana lan bunu verdiler, niye böyle yapıyoruz? Şunu şöyle yapsam olmaz mı? Bunun altında ne yatıyor? Onu yaptığınız zaman zaten siz de anlamaya başlıyorsunuz. O zaman yani kendiniz bir şeyler katmaya başlıyorsunuz. Kendiniz bir şeyler katmaya başlayınca tabii sizin şeyiniz artıyor yani. Değeriniz artıyor. Merak etmeyin, değer verirler yani. Türkiye'de verirler mi vermezler bilmem. Orada da yani zor ama kendinizi ispatlarsanız verirler ve değer verirlerse bir yere gidersiniz. Hani şimdi diyebilirsiniz yani ya ne anlatıyorsun hoca ya, ben okulu bitireceğim, işe başlayacağım, evleneceğim, bilmem ne yapacağım falan, bana para lazım, cart curt. Okay, well, that's a different track. Ama kafanızı ona takarsanız you become an expendable person. What does expendable mean? Her sene, Amerika'da genellikle 5 senede bir, 10 senede bir bu işler çıkar. Research başlar, paralar gelir, çalışılır, research kesilir, paralar gider. Hadi bakalım herkesi kapının önüne. Kimi kapının önüne koyacaklar? Ya işte böyle düşünenleri. Ben yakınına bile gelmedim böyle bir şeyin. Ama yatırımı yapacaksınız. Yatırımı da neye yapacaksınız? 2 şey yapabilirsiniz. İnsan ilişkilerine ve şarlatanlığa yapabilirsiniz. Kimse tutamaz sizi. Bunu yapmak istiyorsanız kesinlikle kınamıyorum. Bu da bir yoldur. Ne olacak? Yani neticede dünyada belirli bir zamanımız var şimdi yani fazla popoyu yırtmaya gerek yok. Arkadaş ben BMW kullanmak istiyorum, bilmem ne kullanmak istiyorum. İşte Göcek'te yat istiyorum. Orada şey istiyorum. Her sene yurt dışına gitmek istiyorum. Güzel bir kadınla evlenmek istiyorum. Güzel çocuklar çıkartmak istiyorum. Onları Harvard'da, MIT'de okutmak istiyorum. Okey. Ama bunları diğer yoldan da yapabilirsiniz. Hiç, ben para sıkıntısı çekmedim yani. Hiçbir işimde girdiğimde para pazarlığı yapmadım. Hiçbir işimde ya ben bu para bana yetmiyor demedim. Hep çıktı. Niye? Çünkü I'm good. I'm known. I do something. I'm valued. Şey gibi olmam, Elon Musk gibi olmam. Ama benim günlük kullandığım araba 455 horsepower Detroit çeliği, Corvette. Yani eğer onlara da takılıyorsanız öyle şeylere, onlar da olur. Takılmayın derim, o da başka. Daha önemli şeyler var hayatta ama arkadaş ben oyuncakçıyım ya. Ben şey alacağım, Ducati motorcycle almak istiyorum. Okey, alırsın ama çalışman lazım. Mezuniyetten 1 sene sonra olmaz. Okey, hadi başınızı fazla ağrıtmayayım. İstiyorsanız konuşuruz daha sonra.
Duyuruyorum galiba ama gerek var mı? Bu Humphrey Cycle'dan çok iyi bahsetmediniz de sunumda. Açıkçası onun sebebini merak ettim çünkü aslında Amerika kaynaklı yayınlara da baktığımız
Hep
zaman
Humphrey, dedim sana Lemming.
Propulsion ve özellikle Rotating Detonation kısmında
bullshit.
ilk cümle ya Humphrey ile ya Fikir Jacobs'la başlar.
Anlat bana, diyeceksin, anlat bana Canicom, Humphrey nedir? Kimdir Humphrey, ne zaman, ne yazmış, nereden duydun? Bilmez.
Peki Atkinson'ı orada niye görmezden
Çünkü Atkinson textbook'ta var. Olur mu? Havası yok. Humphrey diyecek ki yani, Humphrey Cycle. Aynısı yani üzerine çizdiğin zaman aynısı.
Bir de anladığım kadarıyla Humphrey'de bilimsel bir sıkıntı olduğundan bahsettiniz. Onu biraz
Bak
merak
şu
ettim.
paper yazdım. O paper'da Humphrey'nin niye bullshit olduğunu gayet güzel anlattım. Bulun okuyun, vardır yani. Hı? Yapıldı. Bak sana söylüyorum ya, sen diyorsun ki lan ukala, içinizden ne geçtiğini biliyorum. Ukala herife bak falan. Bakın, bana her hafta 10 tane en azından paper review request geliyor. Utter garbage. Utter garbage. Yani 8'ine hiç benim işim değil diyorum. 2 tanesini de paramparça edip yolluyorum editöre. Dangalak dangalak şeyler. Aynı çiğnenmiş şeyler. Habire yazıyorlar. İşte bir şey bulmuş. Üzerine bir tane kod yazıyor. Ya kardeşim diyorum, 2025 yılında evde yazılmış kodlarla gelmeyin karşıma. Commercial software'ler var. Thermoflow var, Aspen var, Softinway var, bilmem ne var. Bunlar kullanıyor. Ben senin hesabını check etmek zorunda değilim. Bunlar yapılmış, bitmiş. Otur onları şey yap. Aklına bir şey geliyorsa, eğer satacağın güzel bir şey varsa ona bakalım. Ben kafamı ona yormayayım yani senin için. Lan orada doğru equation of state'i mi kullandın? Doğru parametre neyse yani. Alıyorlar onu, işte alıyor, 200 tane graf şey yapıyor, koyuyor bir paper'a. Salak salak şeyler. Endüstriden haberi yok. Hangi teknoloji kullanılıyor ondan haberi yok. Bir makinenin rating performansı nedir, field performansı nedir ondan haberi yok. Bir tane konferansa gittim, salağın biri işte bu hocalık yapıyor yani. Yani üzüldüm, şey etmedim, fazla üzerine gitmedim ama efendim işte Avustralya'da kömürden hidrojen yapılacak. Ondan amonya yapacaksın. O amonyayı tekneye dolduracaksın tanka, onu Japonya'ya götüreceksin. Japonya'da yakacaksın. Yani Nasrettin Hoca'nın hikayesi. Hani koyunların biliyorsunuz değil mi? Ya dedim sen hiç hesapladın mı dedim. Adama her şeyi bir kenara bırak. Ulan o geminin yaktığı, o gemi neyle çalışıyor? Dizelle çalışıyor. Onun yaktığı şey var orada. Onu nasıl şey yapacaksın? Oh, there are ships who are powered by nuclear power. Yani şimdi adama orada artık, ne derim sen devam et. Ulan gerizekalı, nükleer power'la çalışan yük gemisi var mı? O teknolojiyi kullanmaya kim cesaret eder? Yalnızca adam hala işte yani böyle insanlar. Tarihten haberleri yok, teknolojiden haberleri yok, bilmem ne, hesap yapmazlar. Okur işte bir şey yapar, adam ona, hocası bir şey vermiş, adını söyle, assignment vermiş. Assignment başında bir şey yazacak şimdi değil mi? Bir introduction yapacaksın. Introduction ne yapıyor? Şimdi Allah bilir o introduction'ları da ChatGPT ile yapıyorlardır. ChatGPT'yi ararsa önüne ne çıkıyor? Humphrey cycle çıkıyor. İşte Humphrey cycle bunu şey yapıyor. Gel anlat bakalım diyeceksin. Humphrey cycle nedir? Humphrey hangi? Okudun mu paper'ın adamın? Neyi anlatıyor? Nedir? Onun cycle'ı ne yapıyor? İnternette var işte. Yazdım buraya. Humphrey's 1909 paper. Internal Combustion Pump. This is his paper. 25 sayfa paper. Aşağı yukarı 30 sayfa da eskiden discussion'lar olurdu paper'ların. Onu da basarlardı. Arkasında işte discuss ediyorlar. Yani toplam 50-60 sayfalık, belki daha fazla bir şey. Ya merak ediyorsunuz, alın bakın, Humphrey budur işte. Hadi oradan bana pressure gain combustion gas turbine çıkarım yapın. Yok. Nereden çıktı onu bulamadım. Çok aradım, onu bulamadım. Ama yani ne bileyim ki herhalde 50 sene önce biri falan filan bir şirinlik olsun diye bunu yapmış. Atkinson'ı niye kullanayım? Humphrey'i kullanayım. Kimse bilmiyor. Öyle gidiyor. Bir de şu var. Bakın kendinize güvenin. Kendi aklınıza güvenin. Başkasının yazdıklarını öyle lamp lop yutmayın. Ama onu da yapmanın en iyi yolu ne yaptığınızı bileceksiniz. Efendim Ahmet böyle diyor, Mehmet böyle diyor. İşte Fatma, Hasan, Hüseyin böyle diyor. Ulan ben bir tek böyle diyorum. Şimdi lan acaba ben mi yanlışım filan diye. Yani olabilir, insanlık hali. Okey? Ama yine de kendinize güvenin yani. Ama kendine güvenmenin yolu da kendinizi geliştirin.
Şimdi örnek verdiğiniz konferanslarda sunulan bilgilerden, size gelen review'lardan. Fakat bunun bir nedeni de bütün dünyada, yalnızca Türkiye'de değil.
Yok ben dünyadan
Yok,
bahsediyorum.
şöyle,
Bana Türkiye'den bir şey
bütün
gelmiyor.
dünyada şöyle bir yöntem izleniyor akademik yükseltmelerde. Ne kadar çok paper'ınız varsa o kadar yükselmeniz kolay ve rakiplerinize karşı önde oluyorsunuz. O nedenle de evet paper'ların kalitesi iyi olduğu söylenen dergilerde bile çok kötü.
Pislik yapıyorlar ama, canım yani bir şey yazıyorsunuz.
Evet.
Efendim şey işte Johnson şu şeyinde şunu yazdı. Kim lan Johnson? Biraz şey yapıyorsun. Johnson onun bilmem nereden arkadaşı yani birbirlerini
evet, tabii o atıflar,
citation,
networkler o ayrı konu
yani.
Ama şimdi ben hep şunu düşünüyorum son yıllarda. Acaba gerçekten dünyada bilimsel çalışmaları finanse eden biraz böyle komplo teorisi gibi oldu ama aklıma gelmiyor değil. Çok fazla journal paper var. Çok fazla yayın yapılıyor. İşte 3. Dünya ülkelerinden gelen yayınlar var ve bunlar çok da bir elekten geçirilmiyor her zaman. Tamam.
Çünkü
Evet.
onu şey yapacak adamın şeyi yok, nosyonu yok.
Buna izin veriliyor. Aslında buna izin verilmemesi
yani,
gerekiyor.
O da çünkü aynı şeyin çarkın içinde.
Evet.
O bazen şey görüyorum. Ben işte paper geliyor, yazıyorum. Diyorum yani this is garbage. Sebebi de bu. Onu genellikle yere batırdığım hiçbir paper'da yayınlanmamıştır yani.
Evet.
Ondan sonra ama mesela sana bir daha mesela bazılarında şey geliyor. İşte bazılarına hadi acıyorum diyorum ki yani işte major revision lazım. Ona bir bakalım. O geliyor. O gelince şimdi tabii rebuttal geliyor. Rebuttal'da tabii diğer mesela 3 tane 4 tane reviewer varsa onların şeylerini de okuyorsunuz. Pısapa gelmez şeyler yani. Herif gitmiş neye takılmıştı? Orada bilmem ne typo var, orada bilmem ne var. Şurada şey olsun. Ya geç kardeşim konuya gel. Herif neyi anlatmak istiyor bu paper'da? Neyi yapmak istiyor? Yapıyor mu onu? Maval okuyor. Onun maval okuduğunu biliyor mu bilmiyor mu? Biliyorsa he is playing the game. Niye? Çünkü yarın öbür gün o da bir şey yazar. Onun şeyini de bir şey eder. O zaman onu şey yaparlar. Onu yemiyor tabii. Ya da haberi yok işte. Yani iğrenç canımdır. Bir de şimdi şey çıktı biliyorsunuz bu open access.
Open access.
Ya ama sizden para alıyorlar.
Evet.
$1500 mı 2000 dolar mı
çok
ne?
Çok da fazladan
hiç
yerler.
onlara ben şey yapmıyorum. Ben genellikle yalnızca ESM'ye şey yaparım. Konferans ya da journal olarak. Ya da oturup kitap yazarım yani. Bu işin tamamen open olması lazım yani. Herkes her istediğini yazacak. Şey yapılacak yani. Bu işler pazara çıkacak.
Ben bir soru daha soracağım. Bu Rotating Detonation sayfasında kısmında sanırım yanlış hatırlamıyorsam Felenpin'in bir çalışmasından bir görsel koymuştunuz.
Kimin?
Felenpin, Fransa'dan. Yanlış hatırlamıyorsam.
Evet.
Orada basitçe aslında şey şematiği var. Kompresörde sıkıştırılan hava Rotating Detonation'la türbine iletiliyor da yine aynı makalede onun şöyle bir yorumu var. Bu yanma odası çıkışındaki çok karışık akış düzeni, heterojen düzen çünkü oblik şoklar geliyor arkadan,
tabii.
slip line geliyor
şunu
vesaire.
Yani çok üzere şey yapmadım. Yani şurada şunun açılımı tamam mı?
O arkaya olduğu gibi iletiliyor aslında.
Tam olarak nasıl oldu mesela şu nasıl oluyor falan filan bunu iyi açıklayamıyorlar yani itiraf da ediyorlar yani.
Ben orada şunu sormak istiyorum. Yine aynı makalede şöyle bir yorumda bulunuyor. Bu etkileşimlerle çalışacak bir türbin öyle kayıplara sebep oluyor ki küçük çaplı turbojet motorlarda bunu geliştirmek aslında feasible çıkmıyor sonuç olarak.
İki tane şey var. Şimdi buraya bu pressure gain combustion yaptığın zaman bu sana dediğim gibi daha önce anlattığım gibi burada frekansı düşük. Yani bu dediğim gibi böyle bam bam bam bam bam bam bam diye gidiyor. 80 mesela 60 filan. Tabii bu buraya geliyor. Buradaki nazıla bam bam bam bam bam vuruyor bir kere. Ondan sonra bu nazıl onu alıyor. Ondan sonra blade'e transfer ediyor o şeyinden. Orada çok büyük kayıplar meydana geliyor. İkincisi bunu cool etmen lazım. Cooling nereden gelecek? Kompresörden gelecek. Ama kompresörün yarattığı pressure buradaki pressure'dan az. Ne olacak? Bir tane booster compressor koyacaksın. Extra complication. Ondan sonra bunun oturup kayıplarını şey yapacaksın. Tipik olarak mesela normal bu makinalarda şu birinci stage, turbine stage efficiency total to total 90 civarındadır. Bu GE şunu yaptığında, bunun şu paper vardır. Hangi resimdi? Bak şu resmi aldığım paper. Bu büyük ihtimalle sende vardır, yoksa da şeyde bulursun bu ISME konferans paperlarında şey yaptıklarında. Bunu hesapladılar işte çünkü bu rotating şöyle çalışıyor by the way. This is like a Gatling gun. Dönüyor. Gatling gun'ı biliyorsunuz değil mi? Yani maltın ağzım. Böyle veriyor. Şurada içeride bir tane single stage turbine var. O turbinin efficiency low 80's'di. Yani ve iki tane zorluk var. Bir, NOx emissions ne olacak? NOx emissions. İki, parts life nasıl olacak? Mesela kaç saat çalışacak? Şu anda mesela genelde bu makinalarda major outage, turbine outage 32.000 saat, 64.000 saat onlara bakıyorlar şimdi. Şimdi bu şekilde çalışan bir şey gitmez büyük bir ihtimalle yani o kadar. Ne olacak o? Zaten yani dediğim gibi on paper efficiency advantage combined cycle muazzam yani bir E-class firing temperature'la 65% elde edebilirsin hesap. Ama işte bu sebeplerden dolayı orada çok büyük belirsizlikler var ama yani ulaşabileceğin 2 ila 4 percentage point. Still very large yani. İşte rotating detonation'ın o. Yani saving grace'i çıkışta yani operating frequency çok yüksek. O azalıyor. Nasıl derler? Intermittency'nin getirdiği şeyler. Ama birincisi pulse detonation kadar pressure gain yaratamayabiliyor. Çünkü Chapman-Jouguet wave velocity'leri yapamıyorlar. Niye yapamadıklarını da açıklayamıyorlar. Hatta bu paper'da da yazıyor yani. Diyor ki yani Chapman-Jouguet velocity achieve edemiyoruz. The reasons may be this, that, etc. bilinmiyor. Ve ayrıca da galiba bu paper'da mı bunlardan bir tanesinde de yine hesaplamaya çalışıyorlar. Türbinin efficiency'si ne olabilir diye bayağı düşük yani.
Hocam aslında ben de yani o konuya biraz bağlayacaktım. Siz enerji, daha doğrusu elektrik üretmede kullanılacak gaz türbinlerinde pulse detonation'la daha görüyorsunuz.
Onu ben bir paper'ımda yazdım yani çünkü şimdi kabul ediyorum yani aircraft propulsion applications için rotating detonation probably better. But we do not have that issue in land-based power generation. I mean, bir tane paper'ım var, journal'da yayınlandı, onu yollarım istiyorsanız. Yani dedim, let's rethink the gas turbine. Yani şöyle neat bir flange to flange olması gerekmez. Ayırırız bunları. Yani kompresör olur, şurada bir yerde bir tane bir pulse detonation bank olur. Anlıyor musun? Ayrı. It's on land. Yani orada birçok şeyler yapabilirsin yani. Öyle bir şey yapıp yani efficiency elde edebilirsin ama tabii yani bunlar çok para isteyen bir de para yani. Yani yaptı mesela Brown Bowery 1940'larda bayağı enteresan gaz türbinler yaptı. Arayın bulursunuz. Yani ben kitaplarımdan birinde de bahsediyorum yani. Yani gaz türbininden başka her şeye benziyor. Kompresör burada, intercooler burada, jeneratör orada, şurada, burada falan filan. Şimdi bugün onu yapamazsınız yani. Şurada şu makine very compact. Yani bugün şöyle bir makine işte 50 Hz'de 550 megawatt power generate ediyor yani. Ve buna milyar dolar yatırım yapılmış. Adam ne yapacak bunu yani kapatacak? O parayı daha geri alamadan yeni şeye mi geçecek? Zor. Yani birçok şeyler var. Ama dediğim gibi yani En azından teori olarak enteresan bir konu. Yani üzerinde çalışmaya ne bileyim yani genç olsam ben de yani belki düşünürdüm tekrar okula gidip yapmayı. Bu yaştan sonra yapacak halim yok. İşte. Ve vardır yani muhakkak ki dediğim gibi bayağı heavy R&D var. Garantisi yok. 2 sene sonra kapanabilir de. Ama yani iyi bir PhD şeyi falan olabilir yani. Hı?
Konular var, sadece
Duymuyorum kusura bakma.
heat transfer açısından da çalışılması gereken
Tabii
konular
canım,
var.
her şey yani,
sadece
bütün her şey var
termodinamik
yani
değil.
gaz
Yani
dinamik, termodinamik, heat
çünkü
transfer.
intermittent akıştaki teori o farklı
Yani
konumuz
çok,
akışına.
çok enteresan, verimli bir konu yani.
Evet. Çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Eğer başka sorunuz yoksa çok faydalı bir sunum oldu hepimiz için. Çok teşekkürler katılımcılara da.